What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Lakers Outsiders podcast. Gary Kessler here with you, as always. Sort of an emergency podcast here. We got kind of a bombshell dropped on us right before free agency started, and Paul George has a new home, so we're going to talk about it a little bit. I have three guests with me today. This is on all Silver Screen and Roll podcast on the Lakers Outsiders podcast, but Anthony Irwin, the host of Locked On Lakers, joins us. Anthony, you've been away from podcasts for a week. How's it feel to be back on one?
I didn't know we were letting Grant speak in public. I'm a little nervous about this, to be completely honest.
Spoiler alert, Grant Goldberg's also on the podcast.
Yeah, I think I said maybe 10 or 15 words during our live draft podcast. But,
at least that thing didn't go 8 hours or so.
Right. So, I had to be efficient with all the time that I got. I was sitting right next to Anthony, and I could just feel the heat radiating off of him as he was talking and spewing out takes. So now I've cooled off, and I'm ready to go.
I actually think that was the heat radiating off of the Pacifico that they were serving at that thing. Those were not cold.
And Harrison Fagan is also with us. Harrison, you've got to be pretty bummed that Anthony's going to be back on Locked On Lakers, right?
Are you done talking? I'm just trying not to interrupt you.
Come on,
and
say
also,
something quick.
Anthony, I am going to interrupt you.
Wait, we're just going to keep cutting each other off? Is that how that's going to go?
I was just going to say that I appreciated Grant basically calling you fat, but,
I like how – so I got mentions, or I got, people would say like, hey, when are you coming back? Because Harrison keeps on cutting off your guests. So I was like, it really can't be that bad.
You did not get mentions with that. We got one tweet complaining that you were gone, and I got like 900 saying thank you for kicking Anthony off the podcast. I
got multiple tweets about how you kept on cutting off guests.
That's a lie. You're just a fake news. Sad.
No, I don't know. I got multiple tweets about people saying how you were cutting off. And then on top
many people, the best people are telling Anthony that people missed him.
And then I
listened on marriage counseling.
I never listened to the show. Like I never ever listened to our show. And I tuned in today to listen to it really can't be that bad. And then you had an entire minute-long thing about how you were not gonna cut off guests after cutting off Drew, our boss. Good call.
Somebody needs to tweet at Lou Williams and tell him we got two bloggers that are ready to fight each other. So I think he'd be interested in watching this. But
he'd get mad that a blogger was telling him what type of fights to watch when they've never been in a fist fight.
I like how Lou calls out probably the most respected reporter. He said bloggers in their basements or whatever, but he called out Zach Lowe. That was in response to something, according to my mentions, that was something that he was responding to with Zach Lowe, who was the most respected. I think there was an article written last year about how Zach Lowe is the best basketball commentator in the world, if not commentator, period. Good call. Lou.
It was journalists, and Zach Lowe did a podcast the other day. So now we're just going to aggregate podcasts on a podcast, I guess. But Zach Lowe's most recent podcast, he revealed that Lou Williams has blocked him on Twitter. So, Anthony, hey, you're in good company getting blocked by Lakers guard.
Yeah, so congrats on that, I guess.
You
also blocked by DAngelo Russell, right?
The funniest thing in how many people, because I haven't handled this DAngelo Russell trade very well. I'll be the first one to say that my timeline has been filled with not handling this very well. But what people don't realize when they're telling me that they're calling me a stan and that I should just marry the guy already or whatever it is, that I should change my account to at DLow #1 fan, that Russell has me blocked. The irony in all this is that Russell does not care at all what I have to say about him.
Well, I mean,
And
people have said he's
sitting. You're sitting outside his window, just throwing rocks, hoping to get his attention, but
with a
he
sign.
just closes the blinds.
Well, people said he's immature. Apparently, he's not dumb though. If he's got Anthony blocked on Twitter, so.
Fair point.
All right, so
one sec on the silver screen and roll mentions. I had one tweet about Magic Johnson holding up a cap space jersey as Adam Levine, and I think one of the replies said, "Geez, you guys are as immature as D'Lo. No wonder you can't take this trade well."
All right, so we mentioned Paul George. We'll actually talk some hashtag content here a little bit. Paul George was traded today to the Oklahoma City Thunder kind of out of nowhere for Victor Oladipo and I always mispronounce his first name, Domantas Sabonis.
He's like that guy. He's Daman on Twitter, plus Tass Mellis, and then Sabonis.
Oh, okay, yeah, that. Anyways, that's what Paul George was traded for today. Anthony, you're a very opinionated individual, so I'm going to throw this to you first. What were your initial thoughts on the trade?
Well, Gary, I think it did prove that Jimmy Kimmel segment where Paul George read mean tweets and it said, "I really think Paul George could get traded for a bag of saltines," turns out not that far off. That guy might be the new Woj, because the Pacers, I guess, are just like verified members of Team Petty at this point, and just absolutely did not want to send George to the Lakers. So they're like, you know what? Like in Oklahoma City, you got a bag of trash, we'll take it. Like one of the guys went to Indiana and the other guy's white, so we can market both of them.
I'm not going to give a hotter take than that. All right. I do. The other guy's white caught me completely by surprise. That's the kind of thing I usually say on the show. I think all right, so first and foremost, like, props to Indiana for not taking all of Boston's alleged trade proposals, right? We're like, apparently Boston, according to the Boston media, Danny Ainge was willing to trade his own first son. He was willing to trade, the Nets pick at the trade deadline. He was willing to trade the Lakers pick. Like, honestly, if you're out there in Boston and you believe these reports, like, this is how Kurt Schilling would become president. Like that's how that happened. and so, like, that was my first reaction to that, was that, you had Chris Mannix out there who was basically Danny Ainge. Like, Danny Ainge has direct access to Chris Mannix's damn phone. That, like, Danny would accidentally @ himself in one of these tweets that Chris Mannix would send out, that, somehow he's flabbergasted that the Indiana Pacers wouldn't take these deals, when we all know that Danny Ainge was reluctant to deal Terry Rozier for Jimmy Butler at the trade deadline. So, like, don't tell me about these trade, these offers that they were telling you guys about. But regarding to the Lakers, I think this is probably the best situation that you can possibly have for the Lakers, because, like, George is leaving Indiana because he doesn't want to live in a city that has like one 7-Eleven, and he's going to Oklahoma City, and it's going to be the same thing. And while he's there, like, his sole purpose on a basketball court is play the defense that Russell Westbrook isn't playing while he's chasing his triple doubles. And, by the way, make sure Russ gets all of the shots at all times, period. And, like, if you're the Lakers and you were hoping to get Paul George in free agency, this is about as well as this could have played out, because he's not going to be anywhere near contention for a title, and he's not going to be in a city that, has more than 3 Motel 6s. So, like, all you're hoping for in this situation is that, like, Paul George hates it so much in Oklahoma City and reminds Russell Westbrook, hey, by the way, we both lived on the West Coast at one point. Like, we could have that again. We can run shit again. This could actually turn out pretty well for the Lakers. But like, Harrison, you wrote that article the other day, and I don't think this was your intention, that like good results should somehow make up for poor process. Like, if the Lakers were to wind up with Paul George and Russell Westbrook at the end of all of this, like, I still don't think that necessarily makes up for the fact that they gave away DAngelo Russell for nothing, really. You know, they gave him away for 6 months of Brook Lopez and the ability to rid themselves of this Timothy Mozgov contract, when you could have made that trade at any point period. I don't know if I've seen that point made as clearly enough as I think I'd like it to be made.
No, my point was just that the majority of people are not going to care. If it works out for them, most people aren't going to care that it was bad process. That's ultimately why I think. I mean, and we can't know whether or not it's going to work out right now. That was my main point.
But that's like saying, all right.
I think it's bad process in my opinion, but it's not. It doesn't necessarily equate with bad results. And I'm sorry I cut you off.
If Jen came home and said, all right, babe, I just made X amount of $1,000 this week. But the good news is I turned all of that into all of, just what would it be? I think it'd be like 500 Powerball tickets. We got this, Even if we made the Powerball, I think I'd be still kind of frustrated about the fact that, like, you maybe shouldn't have risked an entire paycheck on.
Well, you just
Powerball.
couldn't give her the winnings, because now you know what she does when she gets a bunch of cash or something.
Yeah, right. I'd be a little perturbed about how she played that out, or just like, if I were, we're all going out to Vegas in a couple weeks, and we're getting paid. I think we're getting paid while we're out there, right? Yeah, SB Nation pays us while we're out there. If I were to tell Jen that, yeah, I'm going to use my entire SB Nation paycheck and bet it all on 12 in Russian or on the roulette table, like, and won, yes, Jen would be thrilled probably with the winnings initially, but then she would kind of come back and say, wait, what the hell were you thinking? And I think, like, with the Lakers right now, that's what they're doing, is they gave away DAngelo Russell. I was happy to hear that they didn't trade away Brandon Ingram and Lonzo Ball for Paul George, but they kind of put themselves in the situation where they're banking on this cap space that could turn into maybe Paul George, maybe LeBron James. But we've been down this path before, and I think it was Arash Markazi tweeted it out, like, these guys aren't going to team up together in situations where there isn't anything, there isn't a foundation ready-made for them to build on. These guys want to team up together in winning situations already because they have the Warriors to deal with. And that's what I think Laker fans are missing out on, is that, like, these guys, yes, if it is technically possible for Paul George and LeBron James to team up together in Los Angeles, but they wouldn't be doing so to win basketball games. LeBron would be there to hopefully eventually become part owner of the Lakers, and Paul George would be there to be able to sell his shoes for more than $65 on Amazon.
Wait, you can get Paul George shoes for $65 on Amazon? It's pretty intriguing.
Yeah, why hasn't anybody told me about this? But
yeah.
I'll let you guys all kind of chime in on this, but I'll throw it to Grant first. I mean, I think we all agree that this is a good thing for the Lakers, because the Thunder, even with Paul George on paper, I mean, to me, there's no way they're good enough to me, even get to the Western Conference Finals. So I think that bodes well for them. It was better than Paul George getting traded to, say Cleveland or Boston, a team with a legitimate shot with him to at least make it to the NBA Finals. So, I mean, it's good in that aspect. And I think Russell Westbrook isn't an easy player to play alongside. I mean, you could tell through different parts. I mean, Kevin Durant was frustrated as hell playing next to him a lot of times, and that's just the way Russell Westbrook is. I love Westbrook. He's a great player. I mean, he won league MVP for a reason, but he's you can definitely sense how frustrating he can be to play with. But Grant, at the same time,
I thought it was telling when Victor Oladipo went on Instagram today and tweeted out a picture of just shackles being just unopened shackles. I thought that was kind of telling.
I mean, yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, as talented as he is, yeah, I could see, as somebody that, grew up playing basketball, how frustrating that could be. But Grant, at the same time, are you at all worried that Paul George could still, enjoy his time, enjoy this upcoming season? Because Russell Westbrook, from a talent perspective, is going to be the best player that Paul George has ever played alongside, in an NBA season.
Yeah, I mean, he can enjoy it, but I don't think it's going to be so much that he's going to reconsider leaving for LA, because, it's Oklahoma City. Like Anthony said, this place has got a Chick-fil-A, maybe one. So
yeah, even Boise has more than one Chick-fil-A.
Their Chipotle still has salmonella.
Don't tell Danny Ainge. But yeah, I mean, Oklahoma City, all the players say that the crowd's great and they love it. They love playing there, but at the same time, it's still in Oklahoma, and he's staring at LA. I wouldn't be surprised if halfway through the season he held up a sign that says, "F you guys, I'm packing my stuff and I'm leaving." And I feel like Russ is a cool guy and he's a great player, but he's not exactly the best fit. Out of all the top 10 players in the league, I'd say he's hardest to match up a player with and say these two guys fit great together. So I feel like, yeah, he could have fun, but in the end, I don't think he's going to stay at all.
Gary, would you trade? As the season goes along, I think it's going to be abundantly clear that Paul George isn't going to stay there in Oklahoma City. So, if you're the Lakers, would you offer up a Julius Randle and try to make the salaries work so that you can, maybe can they even with the new CBA, can they attach Julius Randle to Brook Lopez and just send that out there to OKC?
Yeah, they could. I don't know the exact numbers on the salary or whatnot, but if it lines up, you could do that, and you'd get Paul George's bird rights in that scenario. You can't offer the 5-year, $200+ million contract that Steph Curry just got tonight, but you can still give him the Blake Griffin contract, basically the 5-year, I think around 170 something million. I personally wouldn't, because I think it's at the trade deadline. It's February, whatever. And the Lakers are probably going to be under 500, not really a threat. And at that point, I would just say we've come this far without giving anything up. They're going to get beat in the first or second round of the playoffs. And my thinking with this is Paul George is going to give the Lakers a meeting. I'd be shocked if they don't at least get a meeting they didn't get with a few free agents, marquee free agents last summer. I think they're at least going to get in the same room as him. And, if all reports are true that, he really admires Magic Johnson and he sits down in a room with him and Rob Pelinka, and they, they go over, their pitch and all that stuff. Honestly, I think that's going to be hard for him to turn down, unless the Thunder, maybe they make another move to bring in another piece. I don't know, but I don't know. I think he's at the very least going to give them a meeting. And I think really with all the reported interest that's out there, I think, I don't know, maybe I'm too optimistic, but I honestly think that's all they need. They just need to get in the same room with him. And I think, they'll be able to get him.
But doesn't that make the Russell trade look worse?
We've gone over the Russell trade, 100 times. I don't think any of us agree with it. Because I mentioned this last night on the podcast. I think if you're going to make, cap clearing moves, like there's got to be something kind of already sort of set in place. I'm not a believer in clearing cap space at the expense of a very valuable asset like I believe Russell was, just for a chance at somebody. Like the Rockets, traded all these guys because they got Chris Paul. Like Chris Paul agreed to go there, and so they made a deal. It wasn't, we're going to trade half of our roster just so we have the cap space, to sit down with Chris Paul and hope that he signs with us. To me, it's totally different. And this is, I don't know, they gave away a young player for, half a season to a full season of Brook Lopez, and then they're going to have to renounce his bird rights because if they don't, he has a $33 million cap hold. They won't be able to afford anybody, if they don't renounce that. So, yeah, I don't know if it necessarily makes the trade look worse. I think the trade looks worse if they don't get anybody, I think. If you traded, you cleared all this cap space to go after all these guys, and then they don't sign with you, then it's like, yeah, you learn the hard way, to not trade beforehand without something kind of already lined up. So that's kind of my viewpoint on that.
I agree. There's no disagreeing with the fact that, like, yes, if they trade DAngelo Russell and they don't get anything in return, that like that trade looks hilariously dumb. But like, I don't know, Harrison. When the news came out that Oklahoma City landed Paul George, what was your very first thought? Because like my very first thought was, okay, cool. Like we get to play this out over an entire year, because this story isn't going anywhere, and we're gonna, the Lakers are gonna be playing this like weird game of chicken. But for me, I felt like the only way for the Lakers to really kind of make up for the gaffe that was the DAngelo Russell trade was to line up Paul George and let him be the foundation that LeBron or whoever might be interested in might look to and say, okay, yeah, LA might be a destination in a year from now.
Well, to be honest, my first thought was, of course, this happened right after my laptop died, and I need to get out of the Starbucks bathroom and write this on my phone, I guess. And so I wrote about that rumor on my phone using a Bluetooth keyboard. And then I guess my second thought was just that I just don't think Oklahoma City is going to be good enough for him to be happy enough that he's just like, I want to stay and live in Oklahoma City instead of going home to Los Angeles, when he's made it very clear that he'd consider staying in a winning place, a place that gave him a chance to win a title. Oklahoma City isn't that. And that his desire to go to Los Angeles, or his hell-bentness on going to Los Angeles, is based on it's his hometown and it's where he wants to be. And I'm sure that there's a marketing component to that. I'm sure there's like maybe an Instagram model component to that. And it sounds like he wants to be in Los Angeles for whatever the reasons, for more than just basketball. And so I just don't think that Oklahoma City team, I think him and Westbrook are obviously happy right now. I just don't think that they're going to do enough this year to convince him to stay.
I did like, so when Jimmy Butler wound up in Minnesota, and then he and Karl Anthony Towns take their picture together, and I think it was Towns who sent out something along the lines of like, it's over, period. Like, I like Paul George trying to make it sound like he's excited to be there by saying like the Brody, with the picture that they had from like maybe 6 years ago. Like, yes, we're thrilled to be playing together. Yes. Great, we have this picture together. We'll throw that out there really quickly. I just, yeah. Am I too cynical in thinking, I'll throw this to anybody, am I too cynical in thinking that, like, Oklahoma City is doing this to tell their fans, or to be able to try to tell their fans that, look, guys, we tried to keep Russell Westbrook here. We got him Paul George, And then if the DVP, is it the DVPA? Is that what? No, DVPE. If that falls through,
it's just DPE. I don't know where you're getting
the
the
designated
V from.
veteran players. There's a V there.
Oh, I guess yeah.
Yeah. So like the DVPE, like if they offer it to him, or if they don't wind up offering it to him, that like they can look back and say, look, guys, we really tried to keep this guy around. We tried to get him Paul George. Grant, am I being too cynical and saying like, no, you know what? I'm not falling for that. You guys don't necessarily. We already saw you not want to pay James Harden before. We know where this is going anyway with Russell Westbrook on a team that's much worse than the team that they didn't want to pay the luxury tax with before. Would it shock you at all to find out down the road here that they didn't want to offer Russell Westbrook and Paul George the type of money it would cost to keep those guys around?
Oh no, because they've done it before, like you said, with James Harden. So it makes sense for them to try and show out and say, oh yeah, look what we did. We tried. But when both of them bolt, or one of them bolt, they're gonna say, oh, well, we gave it our best shot. But they have a track record, and that is definitely gonna haunt them. It's gonna be the reasoning that people use for when Paul George leaves, when Russell Westbrook leaves. And to touch on your earlier point of the Brody picture, the only thing better than that would have been like a poorly done jersey swap with both of them in the Lakers uniforms. He's like, the Brody, yeah, we're going to be playing together. 1 year in Oklahoma City, but yeah, we're just going to go to LA.
That little slideshow that Paul George posted on Instagram, his like goodbye and like thank you to Indiana. Just saying, one of those pictures was him and LeBron. That's all I'm gonna say.
He should have just captioned it LOL.
No, but Anthony, that was honestly one of my first thoughts was like, this looks good from the public eye, right? Like this looks like, hey, we tried everything, we tried to get him help, and they're gonna offer Westbrook that 5-year designated players extension. They're gonna offer it, or at least it's gonna be reported that it's offered. And yeah, they'll be able to spin it that if it doesn't work, like, hey, we tried, but now we've got to rebuild. We got to, kind of go and try and rebuild this thing back up like we did with Kevin Durant and Serge Ibaka and Russell Westbrook and James Harden. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I like disgusted to say that was also one of my first thoughts, that it was, something that you thought as well.
I do want to say though that like, so this Supermax thing, when it came out, so I did a lot of thinking about it when it initially came out, and especially right around the time of the DeMarcus Cousins trade, I really thought about like, is this actually good for these small market teams, right? And the problem with the Supermax as a concept, or the problem with a max contract as a concept, is that not all maxes are created the same, right? So not all maxes are equal. I could be offered a max from the Locked On Network and graciously accept it. But if Harrison was offered the same max contract and kept on cutting off our guests, then like our listeners would be bummed about the fact that like we spent all our cap space on somebody who doesn't know how to host. But like what's happening now with these small markets is you had Sacramento say, okay, yeah, we could pay DeMarcus Cousins $200 million, but would that actually do anything for us in the grand scheme of things when it comes to trying to win not just championships? Because like the Sacramento Kings, I don't think they necessarily care about championships because they suck. But like if they But they're trying to think, all right, how can we get a decent return on the DeMarcus Cousins investment if that investment is $200 million over the course of his career? Same thing went for Jimmy Butler, where he gets sent off to Minnesota because Chicago is saying, look, this guy might be a top 10 player in his absolute best of times, but we don't want to offer him $200 million moving forward because he's going to start coming down from his best of times. And that's how this is going to start playing out. Like Russell Westbrook's going to go to the Oklahoma City. It's not just a matter of them being cheap. I can't even hold it against them. Russell Westbrook plays a style of basketball that, like, I don't want to offer him $200 million as he gets past 30 because of the style of basketball he plays. So, like, he might be on the move. And look, Zach Lowe wrote about it. There was another guy from Sports Illustrated who wrote about it. And I'm not gonna like pat myself on the back. I got lucky, and I wrote about this back during the DeMarcus Cousins things. Was I don't think, you know, the NBA keeps on trying to litigate parity, and that's not how this works. You can't force parity upon an entire league, and every time they've tried to do that, they've created the scenario where, look, for us as NBA fans, it's a lot of fun, right? Because, like, Chris Paul, who was eligible for this $200 million contract, he goes to Houston, and the only guy who who across the entire NBA his franchise is happy to give it to is Steph Curry, and he just happens to be this, like, prodigal talent. That's not, you know, for if you're the Lakers, you're saying, all right, yeah, just sit back and wait for these small markets to not be able to pay their guys and swoop in when you can. And that's what's happening right now with Paul George. And when OKC decides not only can they not pay Paul George, but they won't be able to pay Russell Westbrook this Supermax contract, watch for I don't think the Lakers will wind up with both those guys, but watch for somebody to swoop in and say, hey, look, we'll help you with this PR hit, and we'll give you whatever assets we can possibly try to give you to make this look as even as possible. But small markets can't afford to just carve out half of their salary cap to guys who are not LeBron James and are not Steph Curry or Kevin Durant.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, like it's not. I don't even know if it's necessarily just the small market teams, because, you know, there were, you know, several reports that the Clippers were really wary of giving Chris Paul that 5-year Supermax. You know, and we're talking about Chris Paul, like a perennial all-star, like a superstar in this league. Has been one of the top players individually, and yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the fix is for something like that. I guess I've always been kind of a believer in just doing away with the max contracts. Like, if a team like Milwaukee wants to offer LeBron James $50 million a year, I mean, be my guest. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it certainly adds to the dynamic of this whole situation.
I just wanted to add that I don't think that Paul George is going to make an All-NBA team next year. I mean, he couldn't do it with his own team in Indiana. I don't see him making it with sharing the ball with Russell Westbrook. So
I don't think
whatever that may be,
right? Like
I don't. Go ahead.
Well, I don't think it matters necessarily. Like, I think he's still technically on it. No, because he has to still be on his first rookie deal when he's traded to still be eligible for the Supermax contract. So I don't think it matters if he's an All-NBA guy next year.
Yeah. No, I think, yeah.
I might have that wrong, but
once you're traded,
no, I think you're. Sorry to cut you off, but I think you're right.
It's like you can
enter it the whole time. Sorry to cut you off.
It's one thing. So, like, it'd be one thing if DAngelo Russell was traded in his rookie deal, and if he becomes an All-NBA kind of talent, Brooklyn can offer him that Supermax deal because he was traded while he was still on his rookie deal, on his first rookie deal. But once you get an extension past that, and then you get traded, I don't think you're eligible anymore for that Supermax deal. It's a really weird, the way the terminology behind it and the thinking behind it to me is it's just really weird. Like, I wish the NBA, this weird detour or whatever, but I wish the NBA would go in a direction where they would just let teams spend what they might. You have incredible star power across the NBA. If the Knicks want to be dumb enough to spend $100 million a year per year on LeBron James, let them. Like, and then try to let them manage, and then instate some kind of soft cap so that whatever they go over the soft cap, they make it a luxury tax kind of thing, and then everybody benefits from the Knicks' stupidity. But like from what they're trying to do right now with the Supermax deal, like all you're going to have are these uber stars keep moving, and not just because of their own free agency decisions, but because these teams are too cheap and these owners are too cheap to actually pay them. It makes for me as a I'm a probably hard and fast liberal when it comes to politics, but when it comes to sports, I love the conservative idea of open up the market share to everybody and let them have at it. That's why I love baseball so much. Basketball, you have these poor owners who are just like poor Steve Ballmer just spent $2 billion on this on the Clippers, and he's trying to buy this Inglewood thing, and he just lost Chris Paul because he doesn't want to spend $200 million on a 35-year-old point guard.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy, but I don't know. I just Harrison, you haven't talked in a while, and you've been minding your manners, so I'm proud of you. But I mean, just what are your thoughts on this trade? What are your thoughts on this trade? I mean, do you think this situation, I mean, just helps the Lakers, or do you think that there is potential for this to mean that he doesn't end up a Laker next summer?
Yeah, for sure. But there was always that possibility. I'm still of the mind that I just don't buy it until it actually happens. But I also don't think that this trade doesn't hurt the Lakers as much as it could have if he had went to a place like Boston, where they actually could have made like a real run at an Eastern Conference Finals berth or something like that. Because I think in the West, there's just a ceiling on this team unless they make other moves. I just don't see them. They were the 8 seed last year. They had Paul George. I still don't see them as better than like a 5 seed. And I don't think that that's the type of competitiveness to where he's going to be like, I have to lock this up. This is the best situation ever. I get to live in Oklahoma City. This is wonderful. I want to stay here. We're winning. I just don't think that it's going to be enough for that. I think honestly, there's a scenario for the Lakers here where George and Westbrook become really good friends, and they're like, hey, let's go to a team that'll spend around us and like bring in better talent and not sell off young players because they're afraid of extending them, and join up with the Lakers.
Has there ever been a tougher player to read in NBA history than Russell Westbrook?
I mean, maybe, probably somewhere.
Well, because like it's tough because like on one hand you think, okay, yeah, he just put up a triple double. Like he averaged a triple double for the season, and I don't think he get out of the first round. I don't think he did, right?
No, they got beaten 5 games by Houston.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert: Anthony hasn't watched the playoffs yet, Gary.
He got it on DVR.
Has them all stored on DVR. He's gonna binge watch them.
My DVR was just wiped out because we moved. So thanks everybody for helping me out with that. But I think when it comes to like Russell Westbrook, it's tough. I can't think of another player in the history of the NBA that has been harder to read than Russ, because like instead of when Kevin Durant, when James Harden left, there were these or was traded, there were these reports that like Russell Westbrook, Serge Ibaka, and Kevin Durant were bummed because their guy just got their buddy just got shipped off, and then Serge Ibaka was the next guy on that train who got shipped out of town because Clay Bennett is the worst thing to ever happen to the NBA, and then Kevin Durant goes to Oklahoma City and apparently never even tells Russell Westbrook about this. And Russell Westbrook sends these subliminal messages, through the media at Kevin Durant, but never outright says, you know what, this guy left me, this guy deserted me, blah blah blah. And then now he's on the verge of the Supermax. And I think even if that Supermax was offered, I'm not even positive he would take that up, because he has to look around him and say, wait, where did all my really talented friends go? I'm stuck here with Enes Kanter. How did that happen? And I'm stuck here with 6 months of Paul George. And while all this is going on, like, yes, the typical thinking would be that, like, yeah, Paul George would tell Russell Westbrook, two Southern California kids would look at each other and say, hey, we could run things out there in SoCal. But Russell Westbrook is kind of out there saying, you know what, I run things now. I get all the counting stats I could possibly want. I am streamlined for this Hall of Fame career. Even if I don't win anything, I have no idea what to expect from Russell Westbrook.
And I mean, am I crazy for thinking it's more likely that, you know, it's more likely that Paul George kind of gets frustrated playing alongside of Westbrook than they kind of enjoy it and would want to either like team up with the Lakers or whatever from Southern California. I mean, to me, it's more likely that Paul George, you know, a guy that is used to being the number one option, like, you know, taking a back seat to a player like that, you know, sometimes it's just, quite frankly, a black hole on offense. And, you know, everything has to run through him. And I don't know. That's kind of how I envision it. I mean, maybe if they win a bunch of games, but there's going to be that adjustment process, I think, for Paul George, especially because that's going to be Russell Westbrook's team. You know, he's not going to relinquish that. And maybe they struggle out of the gate because Paul George is still getting, you know, accustomed to having another ball dominant player, you know, another star kind of, you know, be the go-to guy. And I don't know. I have a hard time seeing those two teaming up with the Lakers because I could really see Paul George say, like, this kind of sucks. Like, you know, I'm not used to this. And, you know, or it's different with a guy like LeBron. And, you know, I don't think that LeBron and Paul George teaming up with the Lakers is likely at all. There's obviously a chance, I guess, but, you know,
chance of anything.
Yeah, I mean, but a guy like LeBron is so naturally unselfish that, you know, that's something he I think would be willing to make sacrifices, but you know, he's going to demand sacrifices as well. But I don't think it's going to be it would be quite as bad as what Westbrook is going to be like, because I just can't see Westbrook really sacrificing much of his game because he had Kevin Durant on his team and he still didn't. So I mean, why is he going to do it for Paul George?
No, and there's Westbrook, this is breaking news, but Westbrook and LeBron are very different players. And you can just, watching LeBron play, just anyone who's played pickup knows you'd rather play with a guy like LeBron than a guy like Westbrook. He's going to get you the ball in he's going to dominate on his own, but he's going to not only dominate and be able to create his own shots, but he's going to set you up for shots.
But is this kind of like, is this like, you are the Westbrook in this thing, and I'm the LeBron because, like, I know when people are done speaking, or did I just bungle that point altogether by cutting you off?
I think Harrison just gave up.
Harrison hung up.
Harrison's probably he either hung up or he's just pouting. But anyways, so yeah, that'd make him the Westbrook, right?
Yeah, no, yeah.
I don't know. Harrison's body can't take that kind of minutes per game.
He's waiting for me to leave so he can average a triple-double. But I think there are two teams for Laker fans to watch. I think obviously the first team is Oklahoma City, right? Like that, that's the team that all Laker fans out there are going to be watching to make sure that Paul George never looks too happy. Like every high five that Paul George has with Russell Westbrook, they're going to be looking like, well, did they make eye contact before? Like, did they? Is there like
that video that the Suns had where they counted how many butt slaps Amari said Steve Nash gave Amari Stoudemire? The Laker fans are going to be watching and rewinding every single Thunder game to see how many like counting their average high fives and like seeing if it goes up or down throughout the season.
Yep. And like, so that's gonna be the first team that they watch, and that's gonna be the team that everybody like kind of pays attention to. But the other team that I think Laker fans should really pay attention to, for much of the same reason here, is the New Orleans Pelicans. But because those guys, like, they never looked good last year together. Like the only times that the Pelicans actually played well was when one of those guys was either out completely, or when one of those guys was sitting on the bench and the other guy was playing, you know. And look, I am not as high on the DeMarcus Cousins bandwagon as others might be, but if you can wind up with a Paul George and a DeMarcus Cousins, and then you got to hope that Lonzo Ball or Brandon Ingram kind of become stars, like that's a fairly interesting core that Laker fans can maybe kind of sort of look forward to. But like my problem with this kind of like strategy or technique that the Lakers are currently in the middle of is that there are way too many ifs here. Like the Lakers had a situation where if DAngelo Russell figured these things out, and if Lonzo Ball and DAngelo Russell were able to play together, and if Julius Randle ever developed a shot, and if Ivica Zubac became like Enes Kanter on steroids, that like they had a fun young when. But like they had this fun young core that were at least all under control, and all the decisions that those guys made would be controllable by the organization. Whereas like Paul George, if he gets frustrated playing with Russell Westbrook, he could always look and say, look, it sucks playing with Russ. Let's see where LeBron is. And if LeBron, LeBron is this huge wild card out here, that if he says, you know what, I want to own part of the Lakers, which is like, I'm not going to go so far as to say I'd report it, but that's something that those guys have talked about. Like his team has talked about, where's the easiest way that we could own part of and eventually own all of a team. Like that's something that those guys are all focused on. And that's not necessarily what he's looking to do in terms of how can I best win basketball games. Like that's him trying to become a billionaire. And there are all these wild cards that the Lakers have kind of put themselves at the mercy of, that I don't know if me as a Laker fan, that I'm all that comfortable with when they had a core in place that you could at least feel comfortable gambling on and saying, if they figured it out, at least they were all under our control.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Grant, did you have anything you wanted to add on that? We've kind of been phasing you out a little bit.
I mean, that Anthony brings up an interesting point where, you know, LeBron's not looking to win game. Well, but he's also looking out for his future beyond basketball. So when you have a chance to get LeBron on your team, you get LeBron, but you're getting an aging LeBron. You're getting a LeBron that maybe doesn't, you know, put as much effort into the regular season as he has in the past, which is saying something, because, you know, he's known to, you know, rest, and he's known to, you know, just not go, you know, maybe 50%, but, you know, coast a little bit. You gotta think about that. But that I wouldn't want LeBron on the team is ridiculous. Like you take him on the team, but at the same time you got to look out for, you know whether the player is going to put the team ahead of themselves. And at that stage in his career, it's going to be, you know, in flux.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but watching the Lakers win less than 30 games isn't fun. So I think LeBron is a guy that might help, you know, change that. So I mean, I'd be cool with LeBron signing with the Lakers.
Having just said that, I said this before we went on air. I don't know if this is a really hot take, but on the Lakers right now, I would take a 40-year-old LeBron James probably over anybody on the team right now.
Yeah, assuming he's, you know, healthy and he does his legs haven't just given out and he's in like a wheelchair by then.
Well,
but
we're all operating under the assumption that LeBron's a cyborg.
That's
and
true.
He doesn't have normal legs.
So do we? I mean, let's just kind of go one by one here. And Anthony, I'll start with you, and then I'm just going in order on my screen. But Anthony, Grant, and Harrison. Opening night in 2 seasons. So after next summer, is Paul George a Laker on opening night?
No, I don't think so necessarily. I just don't think it's a guarantee. I guess there's a chance, but I'm just not going to buy any of this stuff until it actually happens.
Do you think it's a better chance that he is than he isn't?
No, because there's so many other teams and so many different things can happen.
Anthony?
I think I'm a little bit more bullish on this than Harrison is. Shocker to everybody, but not by much. I think it's telling that I'm not more bullish than Harrison is, to the point where I'm comfortable saying that yeah. Look, if you would have asked me a month ago that yes, Paul George by the time of the start of the 2018 NBA regular season that Paul George would be playing on the Lakers, I would have probably said yes, and I would have probably bet a substantial amount on that. But at this point right now, look, he could get moved at the trade deadline again. He could fall in love with OKC. He could fall in love with playing Russell Westbrook. He could, there are all these, like Harrison just said, the Lakers, because not only did they not trade for Paul George, but they pissed off his agent by trading away a shared client. And that's not something that should go overlooked in this situation. And an underreported aspect of NBA coverage is how much these agents dictate how the league goes. And as much as everybody would like to convince themselves that the Lakers did DAngelo Russell a favor by sending him to some larger market and giving him a team to carve out his own way with, Aaron Mintz wanted Paul George and DAngelo Russell and Julius Randle to all play together, and that's not going to happen. And that's something that he's not going to forget. And for Rob Pelinka to just ignore that aspect of it, you brought this guy in because of his relationship as a former agent and his understanding of how that that aspect of the NBA world works.
I thought they brought him in because he already ran the team when Kobe was playing.
I mean, that helped too.
He tells great stories too.
You brought this guy in for story time, and now all of a sudden, he just forgets what it was like to be an agent. I would love to believe in this front office more than I do. I would absolutely love to, but I can't help but feel
just based on their public comments, I just think they really didn't like Russell.
But all right. Would it shock? This might be my hottest take. No, not my hottest take. I can't put it on that platform.
Let it fly. Let it fly.
Would it shock any of you that Magic Johnson held it against DAngelo Russell that he perceptibly got his buddy Byron Scott fired? Would it shock any of you that was the case?
No.
I don't know that that's the. I'm not willing to go so far as to say I think that's the case, but it wouldn't shock me.
Well, I definitely think that Byron's input, kind of telling him because he had a full year with DAngelo Russell behind the scenes, and it was pretty obvious that Byron and DAngelo didn't get along at all. And so I think that probably factored in somewhere. I don't know if that was the determining factor, but I mean, I certainly think, Magic asked Byron, said, hey, what was this kid like behind the scenes on a day-to-day basis? And I guarantee Byron was straight up and, pretty much just said, yeah, I didn't like him. He was frustrating.
He laughed every time I showed him Ronnie Price clips and told him to play more like that.
But all right, Harrison, you and I have been fortunate enough to enjoy whatever small successes we've had in this industry, right? And if after our time together, I was to move on and try to help some other kid in podcasting, and while I did that, this kid just ignored everything that I had to say and was successful despite doing that, and got me fired from whatever. And then you had the opportunity to be like, you know what? And you had the opportunity to coach this same kid or trailblaze a different path for yourself. What would you I would hold it against some kid if he got you fired, that's how I would, And I think for Magic, he won championships with Byron Scott. I think this is something that I think people have completely overlooked here, was that he won championships with Byron. And DAngelo Russell, in his time with Byron Scott, the dude who the Lakers decided to go with was, and not just any Lakers, by the way, a Jim Buss who Magic publicly feuded with. Jim Buss publicly feuded with Magic Johnson, and then turned around and fired Byron Scott, and kept DAngelo Russell around. Like, I can't help but feel like this was a spiteful move on Magic Johnson's part, because Russell has shown himself to be a very talented player, and he's gone, and it's for no other reason. And we've never really gotten an actual reason. Like we said, well, it's for cap space reasons. Well, it's really easy to open up cap space. It's for character issues. Well, we're looking at Rajon Rondo. It's for shooting reasons. Well, we're looking at Rajon Rondo. It's for creativity reasons. This guy would be able to play with Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball can make every other player in the world better except for DAngelo Russell somehow. Like, I can't move myself off of the fact that this guy completely shat on the Lakers organization, maybe kind of sort of potentially for the fact that this guy got fired, got his boy fired, and Jim Buss, his predecessor, drafted him. I can't move off of that point.
I think there's a certain level of, whenever there's a regime change, that, you know, they got to come in and kind of do some weeding out a little bit. You know, I mean, as a Tennessee Titans fan, I saw this 2 years ago when they, you know, changed general managers and they just kind of cleaned house, except for the head coach. But like that was their mission right from the start, was like they wanted to get, you know, guys out that didn't fit their vision, and you know, even if it was, they got rid of some guys that were young, talented players, and I mean, they moved on. So I don't know if that's just kind of like a habit for people in that type of situation, that, you know, if you don't fit exactly what we're looking for, like, we're going to look to move on. We're trying to reshape this culture. And, you know, so I mean, I think that just kind of everything, I think there's so many layers to why Russell was traded in this deal. You know, there's the cap space, the immaturity issues, Byron, all that stuff. But, you know, I think naturally when you take over a team, I mean, you're going to do some weeding out. And I don't think Russell was the only casualty of this. You know, I think like the Lakers basically point blank in Nick Young's exit meeting said, we don't want you anymore. Like, opt out of your contract and get out of here. Like, so, I mean, to me, that's, I don't know. Like, I think we all agree, like I said earlier, I don't think we agree with the reasoning of the trade. And I don't think we really like it because of, you know, Lopez is probably gone in a year. But I mean, I think it's just, some of it's kind of natural whenever you change, you know, the top people in the front office.
But is that the case? Is that the case in the NBA? Like, in the NFL, like, yes, you have 53 guys on a roster that, like, yeah, you have the peripheral guys that get moved or whatever, but there have been franchise quarterbacks that stuck around despite coaching changes. Like, that's happened in the NFL.
Oh yeah.
And it's because those organizations realize, like, yeah, this guy's really good. But there are two close of ties back to Magic Johnson from Byron Scott that it's hard for me to just ignore that. You know, and for the Lakers to hope that some people would ignore that, to me, just speaks to their lack of understanding what might be going through some fans. And look, I know, like, Harrison always has to remind me of this, is that, like, I am not the typical fan because I keep receipts of this shit, but I can't help it. I can't help but remember the fact that Byron Scott didn't want to play Jordan Clarkson over Ronnie Price. And then, you know, as that year went along, reluctantly realized, like, yeah, that guy was really good. My bad, everybody. And then they draft DAngelo Russell, and it was, well, we got to get Kobe the ball as much as humanly possible. And while they did that, the team sucked, and Byron was somehow blaming everybody else, but the dude who he played at a 35% or higher usage rate, who was the most inefficient player that the league had really ever seen, who played at that rate.
He was a corpse at that point.
Yeah, he was a corpse. He was like, people make fun of Luol Deng and Timothy Mozgov, but if the Lakers would have gotten that kind of production and that kind of efficiency out of Kobe out of the last year or so of his waterlogged career, then I think we look at DAngelo Russell differently, and that's the bummer here, is that they traded this kid who put up the exact same stat line that Kobe did in his second year. The exact same one, counting stats. Look that shit up. It's my pinned tweet, and they moved on from this kid, in part, in my opinion, because Magic's boy Byron got fired because Byron sucked at coaching kids, and not because of what was best for the organization. And that's when people wonder, when people call me a DAngelo Russell stan, it's not me being a stan. I think he's going to be a good player. I don't think he's going to be an all-timer. I care more about the decision making than, is this kid likable in a locker room? Because they obviously don't care about that. They talk to Rajon Rondo. They don't care about the locker room. That's not how that works. You don't talk to Rajon Rondo and talk about how much locker room presence matters. That's not how chemistry works.
And with Rondo, and this isn't even, there's no reports of this or anything like that, but there's a lot of fans that said, this is a great deal for the. Yeah, this is a great deal. Now we should go sign Darren Collison to back up Lonzo Ball. And I'm like what? You said this was a great deal because of character issues, and you want to go get Darren Collison, a guy that not even just charged or alleged.
Yeah, not alleged.
He's found guilty of domestic violence. And recently too. I mean, if you want to contradict your message and your vision, I mean, yeah, go get him or go get Rondo. If you want to make absolutely no sense whatsoever, especially Rondo, because, he's had plenty of issues in the locker room at a couple of stops now. He can't shoot. He's not a good defender anymore. He literally checks none of the boxes that the Lakers have said they're looking for, but they're reportedly interested. So
they reportedly talked to him. I like to think of it as it was a prank call.
Yeah, they talked to him. They slid him a note under his hotel room door that says, GTFO or something like that.
They called him specifically to tell him that they aren't interested in him.
They just called and he picked up and they're just no, and then hung up.
They called him and they're like, your headband's
hey, do
stupid.
you have Paul George's number?
Can I do a quick detour on the? I don't know how much time we have left on this thing, but I did find it interesting tonight.
Next question.
All right. What do you got first, Gary?
Go ahead, Anthony. This will be our final point.
I thought it was interesting though, in the entirety of my time as a Laker fan, every single year it was a tradition unlike any other that X, Y, and Z free agent would send out some anonymous sourced thing to any reporter that so and so is getting interest by the Lakers, and I thought it was very interesting that while all of these things were going on throughout the night, that the Lakers weren't being involved in that until the very, very end of the night. And I can't help but feel that was, I think this is where Pelinka's impact is going to be felt, because he, as a former agent, is going to say, nope, I'm not going to let you guys just use the Lakers as leverage anymore. That's not how this is going to work. So as much as I've whined and complained and griped about where the Lakers are going currently under Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka, I did find this as a kind of positive impact that he might have put in place. Am I completely off base there?
Grant, if you can take that one.
Can you say that last part again?
So, like, I'm wondering if it's I'm wondering if this is Rob Pelinka's impact on this, is that he's telling these agents, being a former agent, he's telling these agents, don't use the Lakers as leverage anymore unless you're willing to do something for me in return. And as such, it took, I mean, we didn't hear the Lakers name in all this stuff until like the very, very, very end of the night, right? In terms of the news stream and how all that played out. I'm wondering if this is the initial impact that Rob Pelinka is having on how the Lakers handle free agency.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be surprising after being so closely connected with the Lakers for all those years with Kobe and having all those players being represented by him. So, to see their name used so often, I feel like going into the front office in his mind already, he kind of knows what he wants to do off the bat, and it wouldn't be at all surprising to see that he wants them to, kind of quiet the chatter and kind of let them operate and kind of do their own thing instead of, letting these other agents use their name, because, it's almost become a punchline at this point. Like, so-and-so wants, or, Lakers might have interest in trading for this guy. And it's begun to the point where, it's a running joke at this point. So, yeah, I'm fully on board with that theory. My tinfoil hat is on.
I'm not really gonna, I guess, draw any conclusions. I think with how this new front office is going to handle free agency, because this is such a weird. It'd be just such a weird year to do so, I guess, because I mean, they've openly stated we're only going to sign 1-year deal guys. We're not going to tie up any long-term space. We're going to try and clear cap room for next summer. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to draw really any conclusions until probably next summer on how they handle free agency, at least. I guess the only thing I've really drawn so far is that they really believe in themselves in getting these free agents, because they've kind of sort of blindly opened up this cap space with an idea of who they want, but they've done so well beforehand, and it's something that if it doesn't work out, I mean, they're left really, really empty-handed. So, I mean, we'll just, like, my thing with the front office and stuff is, like, I'm going to give them a year. I think they've done some things well, but yeah, I mean, I'm kind of just waiting until next summer to see how it all pans out, which is unfortunate because we talked about process and results, right? And I don't agree with the whole process of this and blindly opening cap space just in the hopes that you can land some of these guys. But the thing is, obviously, if it works, it's great. But at the same time, if that's how you continue to operate business, you're going to get bit by that at one point or another. You're going to create cap space by trading away a valuable piece or something. And, then you're going to have a summer where a free agent that you thought you could get isn't going to sign with you. And now you just traded away a valuable piece or two or three or whatever to, free up money, and you didn't get anybody. So now you're really screwed. So it's I mean, I get, like, their thinking behind it. They want to get stars to the Lakers, and they want to, attract these big name free agents, but it's such a risky tactic. And yeah, it's something that we're going to find out in a year, which kind of sucks. I wish we could find out sooner, but I mean, we're going to see. It's a very high risk, very high reward.
Harrison, did you hear the point I made?
Somewhat.
This is why I'm leaving at the end of the season. No, I'm not leaving at the end of the season. But like, I'm wondering if Rob Pelinka's initial impact here was that the Lakers did not let themselves be used as leverage or for leverage as they have been historically. We're like, I've always wondered in the NBA with how competitive it's been forever, that like it's been weird to me that the Lakers would just give away leverage to other clients or other agents, whatever it would be, and not really try to combat that at all. And this year, it took literally until 11:30 Pacific time for the Lakers to finally come up, and it was with Ben McLemore.
About 10:30.
Yeah, 10:30, whatever it was. But it was with like Ben McLemore, Andre Iguodala, and Rajon Rondo. But that was like the first time the Lakers had come up, and I was wondering. I was kind of when I saw the Lakers had finally come up, I was kind of struck by, because the Lakers have had quiet years in free agency before. I was struck
I think some of them being quiet this year, I don't know how much it has to do with Rob Pelinka taking leverage back or anything like that. It's just that they don't really have very clearly, they've made it clear they aren't going to spend money this year. So I don't think that they're out there as much of a boogeyman just for that reason.
Well, but I think that's the thing. But there have been years where Harrison, your job over the last 4 years or so has been to aggregate all this crap, right? And there have been guys who made 0 sense whatsoever for the Lakers, but you had to aggregate anyway because the Lakers were
Anthony, it's not my fault they signed Timofey Mozgov, okay?
It's your fault, Harris. But I thought like over the last 4 years or so, or over the last umpteen years, really, that like one of the surefire ways for an agent to get their client's name in the news is to tie them back to the Lakers somehow. Leak anonymously that the Lakers may or may not have been interested in their guy. This year, I was shocked at how little that happened.
Rob Pelinka can't control that.
Oh yeah, he
Rob
can.
Pelinka,
A former agent can't control his old quote unquote colleagues. That like, look, you guys could try to use this as leverage, but it's going to come back and bite you in the ass like down the road. Like it would be unfortunate to find out that he wasn't trying to do that.
Agents in general hate each other. I don't think that they feel like they owe Rob Pelinka any favors.
But it's not a matter of owing somebody favors. It's a matter of realizing, holy crap, this guy has legitimate power over the market. I don't want to piss this guy off.
I just don't. I don't see any way that he could stop an agent from texting a reporter, "Hey, my client met with the Lakers," same as any other year.
I mean, that could be something that we saw with Andre Iguodala tonight, because the Lakers
that's the example I was going to give. Andre Iguodala makes 0 sense for the Lakers, but they're just because he's probably seeking a longer term deal than they're willing to offer. But the Lakers, he's Rob Pelinka's former client.
It took up until 10:30 for that example to pop up. Like this, it was the first night of.
Well, I think because number one, there was bigger news, and number two, I think you might be reading too much.
Andre Iguodala leaving a championship team to me is pretty big news. Like, he's trying to gain leverage over an actual championship team, one of the best teams that has ever been put together before.
You know what other news came out of that championship team, though, was Sean Livingston re-signing on like a pretty much a steal of a contract, and Steph Curry signing the biggest contract in NBA history. So there were bigger things going on. Sean
Livingston is a bigger deal than Andre Iguodala.
I mean, I think they're comparable level of deal.
Oh, come on. That's insane.
Livingston actually signed. Iguodala, there was nothing yet. He met with people.
Gary,
it's more of a nebulous situation for him, whereas Livingston can just be reported. I think you're reading too much into an 1.5-hour delay in the Lakers being linked to guys. Is all I'm saying.
I mean, it's possible, but I find it interesting because over the last 5 years or so, we you and I have had multiple conversations like this over the podcast, on the podcast, that like, how are the Lakers not trying to take advantage of their leverage over the entire market when it comes to what it means for some agents' clients when their guy gets mentioned in the same sentence as the Lakers? And here you have the Lakers have an agent as their new GM, and it takes quite a while for the Lakers to come up again the way they have historically. I just, it's hard for me to say that this is just some weird
They
coincidence.
just aren't as big of a fish this year. There's nothing they can do to stop agents from linking their clients to the Lakers.
They were big fishes when Kobe was making $25 million a year. Like they were big fish back then.
They had cap space, and they were talking about signing guys with it.
But they had cap space back. They have cap space right now, and back then, no,
But
that's
they're
not
saying
the case.
they aren't.
Like,
They've already said they aren't going to sign guys, and I think
no. They were saying back then that they were saying that they weren't gonna sign some guy back then. Like that's been the criticism of this
the last
regime.
like 3 years. The big story has been the huge names that they whiffed on.
Huh?
The last 3 years, the big story has been the huge names that they whiffed on, that they tried to go and get these guys.
Right, but that's been like the story after the fact. Though, like in the moment, the Lakers have always been tied to these guys who have been trying to use them as leverage.
All right, I'll jump in the middle here. I feel like I gotta moderate a little bit, but I can see where you're both coming from, because I think Anthony does have a point. Whereas, in years past, there's like with a guy like Andre Iguodala, I think, you would have heard, a reported interest with him, with the ties that he has with Pelinka and Luke Walton. I think you would have heard about this in the days leading up to free agency. And the fact that, we were talking about it in the, in the Slack, that we're just like, there's nothing happening with the Lakers. Like, there's a couple hours going by and there's nothing going on. But at the same time, I still think there's a little bit of agents using the Lakers as leverage. Like Harrison, you were saying, to me, it just, Andre Iguodala, like, yeah, it makes sense because, he was a college teammate of Luke Walton. They were together on the Warriors, and Pelinka's Iguodala's former agent. So there's certain areas that it makes sense, but there's less than a 5% chance probably that Iguodala ends up a Laker this season, because he's looking for long-term money and the Lakers are looking for the complete opposite. So it's weird that it would even really get leaked that, the Lakers reached out, because it just doesn't make sense on a number of levels. But at the same time, like Anthony was saying, this was just different. Like in years past, the Lakers were at the forefront of all these rumors and stuff right as the free agency window opened. Or even, like I said, even in days leading up to it, days or weeks. And today, I don't know, maybe we're both looking into this a little too much. I agree with both you guys on this. I'm going to give you the politically correct answer, I guess. But
thanks,
Dad.
Dad.
Side, Gary.
you're both grounded. But no, I definitely get it, because like I said, when free agency started, I'm sitting there refreshing Twitter. Like I've got notifications for Adrian Wojnarowski and Ramona Shelburne, and there's just nothing for the Lakers popping up. But at the same time, yeah, there's certain things that came out later in the night that, like Rondo and Iguodala, that just don't make sense. So
it felt like, to the point that Harrison was making before, or the point that Harrison was making was that, like, it was a very obvious leverage play at the very end, right? Where like Rajon Rondo hadn't been mentioned.
Really, you think Ramona's going to go and report about Iguodala taking a meeting with the Lakers, like over, or not even
This
just
is
any
why you
reporter,
can't host,
really.
Harrison. I was trying to make a point, and then you just cut right in.
Yeah,
So,
well, because I'm jumping in because you're coming up with like tinfoil hat conspiracy theories, and I got to take control back. And
you gotta save some of this energy for your next Locked On Lakers.
No, our next Locked On Lakers is just going to be us fist fighting. But I think
I honestly don't know when they know. I'm not going to have internet for like another 4 months, but yeah.
Oh, but somehow you managed to do this show. But anyway, I just think like nobody's going to report on who Iguodala is taking meetings with over Steph Curry's historic deal. Like they're going to take care of that first. If that info is coming in and it's concrete and the deal's done, like that's the kind of stuff that they're going to be making calls on and trying to file their reports on. It's not going to be like that Andre Iguodala called Rob Pelinka, his former agent, and they were like, "Hey, do you have room to sign me?" And Rob's like, "Well, you want a 1-year deal?" "No." "Okay, all right. Well, we talked," and that's it.
I like this idea that like reporters have only one channel of communication, or entire channels or entire networks have only one channel of communication with these people. Like that's
they have priorities.
The entire channel does.
No, I'm just saying like they're all trying to get as much information as they can. I think that there's like there's a priority level there. It's like Andre Iguodala's free agent meetings do not equal Steph Curry's historic contract.
Okay, but sure.
I think you're reading way too much into an hour and a half delay in their being used.
All right, now we're just yelling at each other. We're CNN, but like, who out there? Ramona Shelburne is out there. Whoever broke the Steph Curry like final number, whoever it was, like, okay. That's the one person, but I guarantee you there are other people from that network, unless it's Shams who's out there by himself because Woj left for Yahoo. But like this idea that like entire networks are saying, you know what, we could get this information, and especially when it comes to Andre Iguodala, who like if he goes to San Antonio, that kind of sort of really hugely helps the San Antonio Spurs try to be better than the Golden State Warriors. And sure, like SEO wise, that's not as sexy as
well, and it's
Curry
also
record, whatever. But he's that would hugely affect those two teams' relationships. And like I found it interesting today that it took until 10:30 for Andre Iguodala to reach out to his old agent and say, "Hey man, can you do me a solid and help me out with this leverage?" Whereas like before, multiple free agents would do the same exact thing without actually talking to Mitch Kupchak, because he was like the lone Boy Scout in the entire National Basketball Association. Like he was this lone Boy Scout who's like, "No, I will not answer the telephone for anybody." And so you had all these guys who like nobody would call the Lakers before to ask if they could use them as leverage. And I think this is the first year where the Lakers were actually contacted and said, "Hey, can we use it as leverage?" And Rob was like, "Not if you're not going to give us anything in return." And I think that's
hold on. You think that they call and ask permission to do this?
No, but I think there's more of a fear with Rob Pelinka than there was with Mitch Kupchak. I don't think that's a hot take at all.
I think that's fair because Kupchak was
understanding.
Huh? What?
I feel like it's a misunderstanding of how this process works.
I think there are a lot more people who fear Rob Pelinka's power over the market than Mitch Kupchak had over the market. I think that might be I don't think it was a planned impact of Rob Pelinka taking over for Mitch, but if it was or whatever, like if it was accidental, then I think the Lakers will take whatever advantage they can get that they didn't have before.
Well, if that's accurate, then thanks, Rob, for giving me some time to get set up before I had to start aggregating rumors. I appreciate it. Gave me an hour and a half with this newfound league-wide fear of your retribution.
I don't think. All right. I mean, if the Lakers, I'm sorry, Gary. We completely hijacked the podcast.
You guys should have let me warn me so I get some popcorn or something.
But like, if the Lakers aren't involved in rumors again tomorrow, Harrison, are you going to sit there and tell me I'm wearing a tinfoil hat again tomorrow?
Yes, because they have one roster spot left right now. They aren't major players this year.
Oh yeah, shit. That they can't get rid of David fucking Nwaba.
Well, they just
I apologize, kids.
I mean, they just guaranteed his deal for the year earlier this week.
Yes, yeah, you're right, Harrison. In $100 million salary cap, they cannot afford to rid themselves of.
I'm not saying that they couldn't. I'm just saying that they guaranteed his salary. They aren't going to waive him like 2 days later unless they get like, like Gordon Hayward's like, hey, I want to come. And even that they've said multiple times out publicly, we aren't going to be major players. Multiple reporters locally have reported that they aren't going to be major players and that they've been saying that behind the scenes. The reason we're not getting rumors is because I don't think that, frankly, they're that active. They have like 14 guys on the roster.
But they've said that in years past, and that didn't stop any other agents from using the Lakers as leverage before. Like, I don't see how you're missing on this point.
All right, I'm gonna cut this off. I feel like I'm gonna have to edit this and send you guys the second half so that you can just use it for Locked On Lakers. But
Harris and I yell at each other for the next hour over this.
I can't wait for Vegas. I can't wait. I mean, less than a week. Like, let's do this. Like, I mean, forget the.
Oh no! I thought I heard Harrison hang up.
Grant left. We lost Grant. He just gave up, I think.
It's past his bedtime.
Shout out to Grant. Jacob came in and was like, "What are you doing?" But no. I'm gonna cut this off because we've been going for quite a while here. This is something that maybe we can touch on more on the next podcast. I'll just I'll just let you two just yell at each other, and I'll just go in the other room or something. But no, that's gonna do it for us this time.
McDonald with us again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I might have to heavily edit this. I don't know yet. I gotta listen through this again. But no, Anthony, Harrison, Locked On Lakers. I'm glad you guys joined me. I'm happy you joined me. Thank you for joining me. Grant, you're not still with us. I mean, I don't know if I should say RIP. Maybe you guys just pushed him to the edge, but yeah, that's going to do it for us this time. I want to thank everybody for tuning in very late on a Friday night. Day one of free agency in the books. We'll see what tomorrow has to bring, and I'll see if Harrison.
It's not going to bring anything because the league is too afraid of Rob Pelinka, and they're not going to leak anything related to the Lakers because Rob Pelinka might do backflips or something. I don't know.
All right, Harrison.
All I know is, like, who's more trustworthy in this conversation? Harrison, who can't show his face, and me, who is not trustworthy at all.
Let us know in the comments. All right, so yeah, that's gonna do it for us this time. We're definitely gonna pod some more before Summer League starts Friday, July 7th. A bunch of us will be out there. I don't think Anthony will be out there just yet, so you're gonna have to wait on the blogger brawl between Anthony Irwin and Harrison Fagan, and I'll be putting in whoever loses. I mean, I'm going to be putting in my application for Locked On Lakers co-host because I mean, I assume there's going to be a spot that's open after that, but we'll see. But
we prefer guys who are on this continent, Gary. I'm sorry.
Oh well, whatever. Fake news, but. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. This was fun, but we'll see you guys next time.